Hey there, internal explorers. How are you guys doing? This is Dr. O, as my students call me in my personal social adjustment class. Welcome to the Internal Explorers Journey podcast. For those of you who have not joined in before, and please subscribe and hit that little bell to know when I start putting things up, and share this too as well if you think it's important that somebody can listen to this. But to give you an idea of what my podcast is, I've always been an internal explorer. I've always asked questions, why, and looking for answers. I've been curious. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I was teaching psychology for over 25 years and still do. And so the human behavior always was interesting to me, and I always wanted to find out more. But more importantly, I always tell my students, if you can understand yourself first, you can understand others, because we're all interconnected in that way, that we have the same kind of behaviors that other people have. And then you can understand yourself, how you and why, what triggers you internally, look at those. Then you can understand why people do what they do. So this journey that I'm taking right now for today was an interesting one. Let me back up and I'll explain to you how I got to this point right now. So my wife and I have our own little time, and this is our serenity room here, where we have our prayer, we have our time to meet with God and talk to Him, read the Bible, and go through our devotionals and talk to each other and pray for people and our family. And my mind works in a different way compared to hers, which is awesome. I'm a little bit hyperactivity, not hyper as much, but more attention deficit squirrel, that type of thing. So my mind will jump from different things, and it's difficult for me to focus on certain things. But sometimes if there's something that sticks in my head, I have a tendency to push it away. And then if it keeps coming back, then there's something there that I have to take a look at. And that's why I kind of see God talking to me. Let me know if you guys do the same thing or if you have same kind of experience. So anyway, going back, I was trying to figure out how someone who goes through a conversion of sorts, and I was trying to figure out, there's people who get close to God, and like my wife, she went through some traumatic stuff, and then she got closer to God because of that. We had a daughter who went through that too as well, and she got close to God. And it seemed to me, and I have never experienced anything major in my life that I would, have to be quote unquote saved. So I was kind of questioning myself too as well. So where's my closest? Am I living with God, or to being what was the term that I heard Pastor Hagee say, that vicariously living through, or something like that. I'm not really connecting as I feel I should. So that's just questions that I ask myself. Basic questions I hope you're asking too, but this is part of my journey trying to understand it. So anyway, what ended up happening is, with my understanding of statistics and things that I teach in that way, and psychology, I figured out that there's a bell curve. The bell curve is where you have the line, and the average people are in the middle. And I was teaching that section in the what's normal, what's abnormal section of my class this semester. And basically, you have the people who are in the middle, who are normal, and then you have the ones that are extreme. So normally, the people, I believe, this is part of my thought process, so follow me if you can. Some of the people who have gone through traumatic experiences or bad experiences, and they find God, really get close because they were so hitting rock bottom, sometimes hitting rock bottom a couple of times, and finally realize it's like lights opened up, what's better than what they were living at before. Then again, you have me, where kind of like in the middle, not really anything majorly tragic in my life. So then where is my connection? So that thought started going with the bell curve. So then I started thinking, okay, we're watching the movie, or the series Chosen, which is excellent, by the way. And it's about the life of Jesus from the viewpoint of the apostles. And I started thinking, because you had the Pharisees, and then those were ones who were overly religious. They went by the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. And then Jesus came, and he, more the spirit of the law than the letter of the law. But then you have those who are atheists on the far end. So you still have the bell curve. It goes like this. You have on the far right people who are, I call them religious pride, that they will even go after other Christians and say, this is what's wrong. They forget what's really important. Then you have the atheists on the other end, who really don't see God in whatsoever. So then I started thinking, okay, so you have a bell curve. You have Jesus, or those who are honestly, like myself, searching for a relationship with God, because it's a personal relationship. My journey is going to be different than yours. My journey is different than my wife's, and my kids. They each have their own personal journey. Some will be on the far extreme, or the other extreme, or right in the middle, or trying to search. So the whole idea that we got out of the chosen is that God just wants your heart. That's basically it. He wants to have a relationship with you. And so that's been my goal and my wife's goal is to try each day to see how that relationship goes. So anyway, what ended up happening and got me to this point was, and I don't know if this happens to you, but I was talking to a friend of mine, and Michael was saying sometimes God will speak to him in the middle of the night, and I kind of found the same thing. I had to go up, answer nature. So I had to go pee basically. And then you're kind of half awake, half asleep. You don't want to turn on the lights and you're like, oh no, I don't want to wake up completely. But you end up being half awake, half asleep. And it was last night. And I was trying to relax. And then it just kept coming into my head. Inverted bell curve. I'm like, what? Inverted bell curve. I'm like, okay, I don't get it. So I looked it up, I Googled it. And basically, you have the regular bell curve that goes like this, and this is normal, right? These are the extremes. So another example would be most people with intelligence, when I talk about it in my class, are in this area here, 100, 110 being in the middle. Einstein would be far left. Forrest Gump would be on the far leftwise more in terms of intelligence. So inverted. Okay, so if you have the bell curve this way, right? Inverted would be starts from the top and goes down. So that's inverted. Interesting. Then I come across this right here. And it's a blog. I've never heard of the guy. This was written in 2016. And I started reading it. And it says Jesus and the inverted bell curve attitude. Right. Okay, got my attention. And so I ended up getting up and I was like, I can't sleep because my mind kept going towards this. So I wanted to go over this a little bit with you and kind of what my thoughts, and when talking to my wife about this too. And this is going to be a continual thing because I still don't know the answer. I'm just searching. I'm just like, this is curious. I'm interested. This is fascinating to me. So if we take a look at this article done on January 1st, 2016, Jim ERWIN, okay. So he talks about Jesus as the inverted bell curve attitude, and he uses Philippians 2 and 2 Philippians 2:5-11. And I'll put the link also to this so you can take a look at it and read it for yourself. And it was really interesting because it describes what a normal bell curve, just like I did, and an inverted bell curve, like I just did. And then he started tying it into how Jesus was living the inverted. I'm just going to tell you, and then you can always read on your own, but this is what I got out of it. Jesus, remember, inverted is like this. So high on both ends, down in the middle. So if Jesus came, he's God, he gave up his divinity and came down to the lower part and became man. So he gave up his divinity. And then God, he did what God wanted, was Father, God the Father, and then he rose him back to his place. So you've got the bell curve here. And some of the things that popped into my head as I'm thinking about this is humility. And that was one of the other things that I've been kind of battling with is, what is humility? I mean, I've always said I want to be a good servant. I said that more when I went off to U of A at the beginning of my college career. And I'm back to that saying, I just want to be a good servant for God. That's all I'm trying to do. And so humbleness was a big part of that. How do I humble myself? Because the thing that I talk a lot about is that you got a battle between the ego, which is pride and ego, and the spirit and God. Okay. And that's what I was seeing in the regular bell curve, where you had on the far left a lot of pride and ego, even on the far right, a lot of pride and ego. Okay. There's no humbling. They don't want to listen. They're the ones that you've got both extremes, right? So if you go inverted, Jesus became human in order to do God's will. Here, if you think about it, the Garden of Gethsemane, that was a time where he said, "Oh Lord, nope, I really don't like this, but your will be done, not mine." Right? So the humanness of him, and we do this all the time. It's like, Lord, I don't really, but we have to humble ourselves to God because He knows better. He sees a bigger picture than we do. And we have to be able to do that. But what does pride do? Pride says, oh, no, I'm not going to kneel down. I'm going to do it on my own. And I found in my life, and my wife has said this before too, she agrees that there are many times that we've done things that we thought are for us on our own. The wrong things to do. Okay. God was saying, you know, I'm going to let you do what you're going to do because you got freedom of choice. That's one great thing that He gave us, one of the biggest gifts. We can freely choose to walk with Him or freely choose not to. He's not going to force Himself on you. That's what I believe. And so I'm thinking, all right, so Jesus went through, and follow my thought process here if you can. Jesus went through, was divine, came to earth, became man. He went inverted, went through what he needed to do to get crucified and buried and then rose again, and he's sitting at the right hand of the, he's boom, he's back in his spot. Now, interesting thought that was brought up in this article was technically he didn't have to do that. He could have just went right across over to the other side and stayed there, but he didn't. But what did the devil do? Well, the devil tried to tempt him with all those things to keep him at that level. You're God. We'll give you all the kingdoms, everything like that. And he did what the Father wanted. Okay, so I started thinking, I go, all right. So that's an interesting visual, because I'm visual, of how Jesus went through and became man and he gave up his divinity, became man and came back and he rose and he became divine again. I mean, he was always divine, but he gave up his godship. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But anyway, I'm going to continue on. So then I started thinking, when I was Googling, when you look at inverted curves, it's a pottery term. It's a pottery term. There are pots that are inverted. So you have the lip, and then it goes like, basically it goes back to the potter, and what God wants us to do. He's the potter. He's making us into what He sees in what is great in us. But in order for you to be useful to God, and this is according to what I was reading through this, what I got out of it, was that you have to be empty. Oh, empty? Yeah. In other words, no pride. To be born again, it's the pride and the ego that has to die. And it started kind of like, it's still filtering. So I'm not really at an end yet. I'm kind of mentally gnawing on it, kind of chewing on that bone, kind of like, let's see, how is this making sense? And then the lines start to connect. But at this point, this is where I'm at. I just wanted to share that with you so far. So I believe that when you are able to empty yourself, or you feel the most empty, like people who've gone through traumatic experiences and then found God, found Jesus, that they were at their emptiest. They were at the cracked stage. So where they had nothing whatsoever, then God filled them up. And the question is, if you have the inverted bell curve, because this still works for people who are far left and the far right, who are pride and ego, they'll stay up here. Oh yeah, they're not going to go down and be humble. Oh no. They're going to stay on the edges, because pride and ego wants control. And people who want control are the ones who are going to stay prideful and have the ego control them. And I'll talk more about that in another video. But they won't do that. They won't say that they're wrong. They won't go through and humble themselves to anyone, especially God. So what I was thinking too is that, when you can have a choice, and this is the question I'm going to ask you guys, and I want you guys to tell me and just write down in the comments there what your thoughts are on this. What are you filled with? Are you filled with the things of the ego and the pride because you're a vessel. I'm a vessel. You're a vessel. We're all vessels. What are you filled with? Do you fill yourself up with things that are not important? And there's a video that I want to do another video on that actually does that, where a teacher goes through and fills in, has different things, rocks, sand, and pebbles, and in a jar, and says, what are the most important things that you want to fill in and be able to fill it into? So anyway, what are you filled with? Are you filled with ego? Are you filled with pride? Are you filled with anger? Or are you filled with the Spirit? Or are you leaving yourself open to be filled by the Spirit? That's the key thing, is to be willing and open to it. That's the hardest thing for the ego to do, because the ego doesn't want to do that. Okay, it wants to do its own thing. But in order for you to receive, you have to have the vessel open. And God will fill you up and you will overflow. And that's again, these are thoughts that are going through my head here, and I just wanted to share this with you. I'm going to make this short. I'm going to put a link to this article to read it. To tell me your thoughts. I want to continue on. If there's any questions, I can do another video and kind of answer those. But I know that there's going to be a lot more things that are going to go through my head, and the connections are going to be really interesting to see how this all ties in together. I don't know the way I always talked about. There's another video that I did for my Psych 205 class, and my Remember to Breathe community that looked at stepping back and becoming the observer of your own life. And so take a look at those. Remember to subscribe, please. I'm trying to get the numbers up as much as possible. Please try to click the little bell so when you're notified whenever I put something else up, and then share this. Share this. But give me your feedback. Like I said, tell me what you think. Some people think, oh, you're kind of nuts and crazy, but I don't know. This is all a process. Life is a process. There's no, like I said, there's not every single person is going to be experiencing God in that way, because we're all a part of the body. I mean, in other words, my journey is going to be my journey. There's things that I need to learn based upon my past experience, based on other things too. My wife's the same thing. She has her own journey. She understands how God talks to me versus her. She can sit down and read the Bible. No problem. She loves that. My attention span is like a squirrel, that type of thing. So God has made me this way, and I'm still trying to figure out how and why. But this is one of the fun things about this journey as an internal explorer that I'm doing. And hopefully you'd like to come along and become an internal explorer too. So if you do, subscribe, click on the button, and share this. So please let me know what you think, and hopefully it made sense. I'm still kind of processing this, and we will talk to you later. All right, take care. Ciao.